All right, so here we go. We're going to work out some of the rest of these. Does anybody have any preference as to which one of these we'd like to do? Are there any of these you had a hard time with? Yeah. The U? Okay, so let's start with the U. That's a good choice. This is kind of a tricky one. Right? So, it's called shape B. Here's the vanishing point for shape B. It's a little bit confusing because it's a U. But we're going to drawing lightly, connect this upper left-hand corner to the vanishing point. We're also going to connect, here we don't have a corner, so this is a little tricky. We're going to connect the lowest point on the edge here with the vanishing point. Okay? The next thing we're going to need to connect is this corner up here. We don't need to do this corner because it's obstructed by the front. We don't need to do this corner because it's also obstructed by the front. Okay? So now all we need to do is the back of it. So again, we're going to draw a line that runs parallel to this one here. It's going to be a little bit smaller than this line because it is further back. We want to keep the distance between this line here and this line about the same as we continue through the course of the line. Something like that. Okay. We want a similar thickness right here. So we've lightly drawn all that in and it looks good. I'm going to go back through, use some bold, confident lines to draw it in. Then we'll come in and do whatever cleanup we need to do. So there's our U. So these ones with kind of the curves to them are going to be a little bit trickier. And I don't like that so much. Later on, I think they have you do some curved letters in here, some more curved letters. So make sure that you have this kind of understood. Anybody have any other shapes they want to do? I think we'll do one more on this page. Let's do this one here, shape A. Alright, so A is going to be a little tricky because it has a hole in it. So shape A is up and to the left. So our orthogonals are going to be going down and to the right. I'm going to draw those in lightly to remind myself. Need to get this inside corner too. So how about this one? This one is really close to this line we already have here. We're going to draw it in to see where it is, but we might not really... Oh no, we can still see that space all right. Not too bad. Okay. We're also going to need to get this hole here. So for this hole, we're going to connect this corner up here. Make that go down to the vanishing point, but only where the hole is. We don't need to draw it where it's being covered up by the surface. We're going to decide how thick we want this shape to be. We can make it as thick or as thin as we want. And we'll start drawing in the back. So again, we want to draw a parallel line to this. Parallel line to right here. Parallel line to right here. Parallel to this one, up. All right, so in effect, when you draw this back, we're always making a quadrilateral. And the quadrilateral is always going to have two parallel sides and two sides that are converging in on each other. All right? So it's always going to be, as long as we've got a straight edge, this type of shape. So we also want to draw the thickness on the hole. I'm going to say that's about here. I made my shape pretty thick. Now I can go back in and draw a little darker. So, if we think about the drawing process, what we're trying to do most of the time is we've got an idea up in our head, and we have a more or less foggy vision of what we want our drawing to look like, and we're trying to get that onto our paper, all right? So, this can be really tricky, and it's a skill that, gets better with practice. But one of the things that really helps, I discovered, and I think countless other people who have drawn before me have discovered, is if you have something on your paper to correct. All right? So if we can take a step, we can think about what we want to draw, we can put a version of it onto the paper, and then we can fix that version that we have on the paper. And that's why a lot of artists who are maybe a little further along in drawing draw really lightly to start. It's because they're creating their first draft on the paper, and when they draw lightly they can see it, but they can also change it. If you draw too dark, it becomes really hard to erase, right? Really hard to kind of change and shape. If you draw lightly enough, you maybe don't even have to erase it. Maybe the lines are light enough that when you draw your final drawing in, your final lines, you can just leave the other lines alone. So that's one of the reasons we want to learn how to draw lightly. I discovered this when I was trying to do a really fun exercise some of you might try sometime, which is drawing a portrait of someone you know from memory. It's really tricky. But the hardest part is getting that first drawing down. Once you have that first drawing, and you can look at it and you can say, what's wrong with this? You can compare something that exists to that mental picture. It's a lot easier to fix. So it's the same sort of idea whenever we're drawing lightly. And here it's a little more like planning things out and trying to get things in the right place using a formula. Other times it's not so much using the formula, but it's the same sort of idea. All right. Let's look at the next page here. All right, the next one are these legendary stars. I already did some of this. So the point of these stars is to really challenge your ability to figure out which corners are going to connect to the vanishing point and which ones don't need to. All right, so we need to look at each of the corners on the star and decide whether or not it needs to connect. So this one's up and to the right. So anything that's kind of along this bottom right area is probably going to connect. So we'll connect those. And this one. All right? So now I need to think about the other corners. Is this one going to connect? No, because we've got the front in the way. Let's see about this one. Oh, so the front's not in the way of this one. At first glance, this one looked like it might not connect because the front might be in the way, but it's not. Okay, so it's important to check these. And as you get better at this, sometimes things will just look wonky and you'll know you have to fix it. Okay, so we need a parallel line to this. This is also kind of the tricky part of this, is drawing those parallel lines and making them connect properly. Parallel line to this. So if I look, this kind of lines up with this here. So these two lines down here should be about the same spot. It should be the same level and angle. All right? So now I can Make this a little more bold and confident. Are there any of these stars that were particularly tricky? So I can work any ones that you want me to. Seems like they're all pretty much the same. So the tricky thing on this one was, do we see this side over here? And I think some of you probably want to put that side in, but we can't see it because it's hidden. Okay, so that side's going to be hidden because when we try to connect this little like armpit corner, that's a good name for that, armpit corner, the front is in the way. Okay, so we don't need to draw that side. So there's one of our stars. I want to erase and clear that out. Let's do this one over here. So again, this one's over to the left, so we'll draw orthogonal lines coming from the corners that are on the right. So let's see, this corner here, we're going to be able to see the side until it hits the front right there. Same idea here. Be able to see the side until it hits the front. This one, we're not going to be able to see the side. See how it goes behind the star? So I don't need to draw it. Now we'll draw the back. So we want a line parallel to right here. That's going to connect to a line parallel to this one. We need one parallel to this line. We want the thickness here and here to be similar. So we kind of want to eyeball where that should go. And one parallel to this line here. We can darken those in. Darken this one in. We can erase the extra. All right, real world objects. This one's a little bit wonky. Let's start with the lamp. The lamp's weird. I don't necessarily know how to do the lamp right. So I'll just show you a way of handling this that I don't think is necessarily great, but same sort of idea. We want to connect the vanishing point to the corners, right? So here's our orthogonals. So the reason the lamp's weird is because usually lamps are round. I guess they're square lamps. Maybe this is like a desk lamp. Maybe that's how we should think about it. So I want to, again, connect those corners to the vanishing point with lightly drawn orthogonals. Okay. So then I'm going to figure out the thickness of this. So I think I'm going to start here. So I'm going to draw a line that's parallel to this one. So I'm going to go straight up. Oops, I have one more thing to connect. This little armpit corner right here. But that gets blocked by the lampshade up here. So I only need to draw it a little bit. So we want a line that's parallel to this line here. Okay. So then we want a line that's parallel to this one here. We're going to have to eyeball where this goes. So we're going to look and we're going to compare how much further out is this than this and try to make it similar here. I think I want to measure it. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. It's hot. parallel to this. Right here, right here. There's our lamp. And the base on the bottom here looks like it sticks out a little bit further than the sort of middle part of the lamp. So I'm going to make this go a little bit further back behind this middle part. So this one's parallel to this one here, and then this one's going to be parallel to this one here. All right. Let's do the bed because I think that one's also kind of a tricky one. So for the bed, again, we just connect the corners to the orthogonal or to the vanishing point with orthogonal lines. I'm not going to draw my orthogonal lines all the way to the vanishing point. I'm just going to make sure that they're long enough to draw the bed. So this one's a little weird because it has like tricky corners. Where do I want to put orthogonals? Just start figuring that out from experience, all right? So I've got two up on the top of the headboard. That's pretty easy. One back behind the pillow. That one's a little trickier. One right here at the other side of the pillow. And one like when we were drawing the U. I guess that's not necessary to put one here. This is an artistic choice right here. And then one at this furthest point here. Okay? You can also add one underneath the bed right here. Okay. Go ahead and have a seat right there for now. Okay? So now I'm going to draw the back of this, all right? So to start, this one's going to be parallel to right here. Okay, another one parallel to here. This one's going to have a curve to it. Okay, this one's going to be more or less flat until we get to the end. And there's going to be a little curve to it. It's going to go down like this. This one's going to go like this. All right, so now we can finish blocking in the bed. We've got a nice three-dimensional looking bed. So these sort of objects like this are really handy to be able to draw because a lot of times when you use perspective, you're going to be doing it to draw like a room. So if you are able to draw these objects in perspective, that makes them look like they belong in the room and have physical presence. If you draw the room in perspective and then you can't use perspective on the objects inside of it, that can be not great. Okay, so this one's a little tricky. I'll get you started on some of the kind of base points in this, some of the main touchstones. Okay. So we're copying this drawing here. So this is going to be a little tricky. So let's start with kind of looking at where that vanishing point is. Okay. So if I look at the distance from the top of the image to the vanishing point and then compare that to the bottom of the painting, the space above the vanishing point is a little bit larger than the space to the bottom of the painting. So I'm going to put the bottom of the painting about here. And I think a good strategy for us to start is to draw lightly until we feel like we've mapped this out pretty well. And to start with larger objects and then work to smaller objects. So this is about where that painting's going to be. Now I need to figure out where that, I don't know, dresser table is. So I'm going to put the front of that about here. So I think it's a little higher than halfway up the page. So maybe I want to move it to about here. Draw this in. Use our perspective here. Connect. Sure. Corners to the vanishing point with orthogonals. Back of the table is going to be right here. So I feel like my box is a little more narrow than theirs. So I may need to move the front up a little bit. That's actually going to fix it. So again, like I said, it's easier to compare something you have on the paper than it is to compare something that's just in your brain. Okay, so keep working, keep adjusting, keep erasing as needed. And then the baseboard is going to be kind of about here. Got a rug underneath it. And the rug's on the floor. And the floor is moving away from us. So the rug's going to have these orthogonals on the sides. Alright, so there's like our base layout. You guys can add details. So this is giving us some information how to draw like a basic city. Alright, so you just need to kind of review this. You're going to start with a horizontal line, a vanishing point, a square, and then you're going to add the sides, and then you're going to add windows and doors. So this is not dissimilar to our just box practice we did. Let's do a little bit of that. So I'm going to turn my paper sideways for this one. Probably want my horizon to be about halfway up the paper. I want my vanishing point to be about the middle of the horizon. So again, just reviewing how to draw a box. Or how, yeah, in perspective. We're going to start by just drawing a square or a rectangle. Probably use my ruler. Got it. Okay. And we're going to work from the corners, draw on the orthogonal lines. Okay. So this is a really important idea. We're working in perspective, in one-point perspective. Any lines that are moving left and right relative to our point of view are going to be horizontal lines. Any lines that are moving up and down relative to our point of view are going to be vertical lines. Any lines that are moving away from us or toward us are going to be orthogonals. Okay? Another line parallel to this one. There's our first building. So now we're going to talk about how to do the windows and doors. So the windows and doors, if they're on the side that's facing you, they're going to be made up of lines that go up or left and right. Correct? So you're just going to draw them using horizontal and vertical lines. Kind of the way you normally do it. Now, if they're on this side of the building is moving away from me, right? This edge here is moving away, right? This point is further away than this point. So for these ones, when I draw the doors, I'm going to draw the tops using an orthogonal line. Now, the edge of the doors doesn't really move away from me. It just moves up and down. And I guess it does move away from me like a little bit, but it's moving parallel to my picture plane. Okay? So I just go straight up and down for those. All right? And I might think, hey, do the sides of this go at an angle? I can't remember. I feel like they might. The key thing to remember is if something goes at an angle, it has to go towards the vanishing point. And if I try to draw these going towards the vanishing point, I'm not going to be able to do it. So that's how I know that they either go vertically or horizontally. So the same idea with the windows. I would recommend if you're going to draw like a row of windows, draw 2 orthogonal lines like that. And use them to guide where the top and bottom of the windows are. Again, the sides of the windows are going up and down. All right? So they just get vertical lines. Another good way to think about this would be just imagine that relative to your vision, you're always looking north. Imagine that you're really important, and so they decided that any way you're looking is north because you're the most important person in the world. Any line that's going north and south is going to be an orthogonal line. Any line that's going east and west is going to be a horizontal line. Any line that's going up and down is going to be a vertical line. Okay? All right. If I wanted to add a second story to this, I could do that by drawing in a box. So this is another spot where it gets tricky. You can look at my box. You'll notice that the bottom of my box, when I draw my orthogonal lines, the line's going slightly up. But once I get above the horizon, it's going to start going the other direction. So a lot of times we get confused when we have boxes that are on the horizon because one edge is going up and one edge is going down, and it looks weird to us. But that's the right way to do it when it's on the horizon. Okay. So that's basically how to do it, and you'll add more buildings as necessary. Does anybody have any questions? All right. I think that covers everything.